My name is Elizabeth Woodson. I run an organization called Reckon With. When I think about Begin Again, this invitation from James Baldwin that Professor Glaude has raised up again for us to consider today, I feel very humbled and grateful to be reminded that we have many guides to help us navigate times of destruction like we are in today. And the teaching that I so appreciate from Professor Glaude is to really take a historical look back at not just our current era of violence, but our where this has happened in our country's history. And there are three. There are three eras that he points out. The first being Civil War, and then the Reconstruction period, which was where Black people fought for and won incredible structural change. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, creating the public school system, elected officials in every position. Then, of course, that period of incredible progress towards justice, towards the supposed values of this country. That era was ended very violently and followed by what is known as redemption, which was a decade that the Equal Justice Initiative documents as being the most violent for Black communities. There was incredibly high rates of not just lynchings, but also community acts of terror and violence to really destroy the progress that had been made. And of course, that was white people that were organizing and enacting the derailment of that justice and that progress. It ushered in, right, almost 100 years of terror and discrimination and injustice with the Black codes, the Jim Crow system. And then the second era that Professor Glaude points out is the Black freedom struggle of the 1960s. And the, again, amazing progress that was made, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, all the legislative achievements that were made. And then the white organizing to derail that progress again emerged. Massive resistance was what it was called, and did everything it could to push back against that second era of pushing towards justice. And then again now, we see the last decade, the Black Lives Matter movement emerging with such force and creating such incredible change across our country and the globe. And then we are now witnessing yet another era of pushback, derailment, denial of that justice. As I think about my work with Reckon With, the mandate feels very, very clear, right? Which is, what do we do now? What is our mandate now for specifically white people to ensure that if we get another chance, if there is a fourth future era of massive change that will be led by Black people when reparations is won or whatever that next major structural change is, how do we ensure that it goes differently that time? How do we ensure that there is no backlash, that we meet it effectively? And so I focus on specifically white people that say that we care about justice and equality, and that identify as progressive, as liberals, right? And what I've learned is that we are the population that has really been a missing piece in each of these eras, right? Of course, there were always white people that fought for justice, but at scale, the majority of white people silently witnessed as those who desired to derail progress acted very, very effectively, right? These are not far away folks, right? Often these are progressive and liberal white people's family members and neighbors and colleagues, right? They are among us. They are within our communities. I want to read directly from James Baldwin here, where he's making the call to what white people need to do, which is engage each other. And he says, I don't want anybody working with me because they are doing something for me. What I want them to do is to work in their own communities. I want you to tell your brothers and your sisters and your wife and your children what it is all about. Don't tell me because I already know. You have the power. And that is really what our work is as we consider our role in this movement of beginning again, to turn towards, not away from each other. We do get many chances every day to choose, but we often lack the courage, the community, the skills to make a different choice than we have been conditioned to in the past. So Reckon With, we have all of our participants are racialized as white. We're in 24 states, and we're working in very small groups, just 3 people. And the goal is to prepare us to be able to meet whatever is going to happen already in our life that week differently. So we do a lot of role playing and trying to make adjustments, to experiment, to engage with love, right? Curiosity and care, instead of to sever or to turn away from the white people and systems in our lives. And I think this is especially important to keep hold of at this time when there's so many urgent actions that are needed. We do, of course, need to protest, we need to vote. And those daily actions with our own are so critical. And I'm really reminded of that, especially today. I was recently at a march for Dr. King. It was really moving experience. But I did notice something that I've also participated in, which is white folks that, are progressive or liberal, really trying to turn away from each other, right? I saw a couple of signs, one in particular being held up that said, my dream, of course, invoking King, my dream is that Trump dies, a painful death and suffers in hell for eternity. And when I'm thinking about, James Baldwin, he was so searing in his truth telling. He never shied away from being explicit and clear about the nature of harm and our responsibility to address it. He also encouraged and demanded love. But I'm so always struck by how the tenderness that he requires of our approach to dismantling violence and injustice. That is really what I'm sitting with. The 3 eras that we have experienced and seen the pattern repeat of Black progress followed by white derailment of that progress, linking forward to the next cycle. What are we going to do now to make sure that that goes differently? James Baldwin's call to get with ourselves, our own communities, and to do it in a way that is loving. And I think the last thing that I will name that I really am inspired by on a daily basis is how possible it is. Baldwin is helpful in reminding us that he said, "I do not believe in the 20th century myth that we are all helpless, that it is out of our hands. It's only out of our hands if we don't want to pick it up."